Hey everyone, welcome to the USA League podcast here, episode 6. Today we have special guest Jeremy Christie. He's he's played in the World Cup, and now he also works in the youth realm, and we're super excited to have him here.
Thanks, man. Exciting to have a chat and talk about my favorite two things, New Zealand and football. So
There you go, yes. And then we also have today our executive director, Kai Vilmer. He's hopping on, and I know that you and him obviously have a previous relationship as well.
Hello, man. I'm Jeremy. Thanks for coming on and doing this for us. It's been a while, but yeah, we go back a little bit to 2010 to when the modern day Rowdies returned in 2010, and Jeremy was part of that inaugural season or comeback season roster. And still, probably to this day, I think I'm correct, the only in modern day Rowdies history, current Rowdies players to play in a World Cup. In the 70s, there were a couple that played for the Rowdies to play in the World Cup, but modern era, I think you are still the only one. I did some research yesterday. I couldn't find anybody else.
well, hopefully we add a couple more, in the next few versions.
Yeah, so thanks for hopping on, and we're also wanted to bring you on because we're helping to promote the international friendly at Raymond James Stadium on June 6th between England and New Zealand. We'll be giving away 2 tickets on our Facebook page and then 2 tickets on our Instagram. So watch out for that, guys, as you are watching this when this launches. We'll be giving away tickets to the match. And I guess my opening question is, Jeremy, are you going to the match?
Of course. I mean, New Zealand don't make it over here that often, especially not to Florida. And especially I get to go back to Tampa, a place that I know well and really enjoyed living in. So massive game too for us to get a game against England. We've had some good ones over the years. This is certainly right up there. So really excited, and to see, 2 powerhouses of world football, take each other on to Tampa there will be a fun one.
Have you been in touch with any the national team or anything, or while they've been? They're the IMG, maybe, I think, right?
No, they're actually down in. Yeah, they're going to be based down at Lynn University as they lead up to those warm up games. But yeah, I'm actually going to pop down there. They're down in Miami. There's a handful of players who are out here already. Down in Miami doing some training, so I'm going to try and get down there and see the guys. It's funny, there's the head coach now I played with at club level. The assistant coach was on our team in 2010, so I know him pretty well, and then incredibly 2 of the players from 2010 are still on the team, which blows my mind. Yeah, they're still there 16 years later. So been in touch with them, excited obviously when this game came out, and they're going to be back in this neck of the woods. I connected with a couple of them, and yeah, excited to go down and see them, and they're super excited about the game, but the tournament in general. And I'm glad too, because they're actually based, their World Cup games are in LA and Vancouver. So it's a bit of a trek to get out there, so to be able to see them a little closer to home is going to be nice.
For people that maybe don't know much about the New Zealand national team, what can you kind of talk a little bit about the players they have on their team, maybe some notable ones, and also like how far has the program come since you played for them compared to what it is today?
I think the biggest name would be Chris Wood, plays at Nottingham Forest in the Premier League. He's obviously had a great Premier League career. Was in the team of the season last year. So Woodsy, he was a 17-year-old in 2010 when we went to the World Cup. So he's probably the biggest name there. All of the players are professional. Most of them are playing in Europe. So they've come a long way since I played. I think we had a really, really strong team. Guys, like a handful of guys who played in the Premier League. But I think the talent on this team is, far exceeds what we had. So I think they've really developed over the last 10, 15 years. The quality, the style of play, all of that has improved massively. So I think they're going to surprise a few people. They played Colombia in Fort Lauderdale in, I think, October or November. Lost 1-0, but played really, really well. And I think they've got a little chance. I think they'll turn a few heads at this tournament.
Yeah, looking at the group, I mean, it looks like they could make it out of the group. Are you thinking where are you picking them to end up in the group?
I think hopefully top two. I think they definitely got a good shot to be one of the better third place teams. I mean, I know they're full of confidence as well. You know, the games they've played against some top tier nations, getting the experience against top tier teams has always been a challenge for us. They've managed to do that over the last few years, so I think they'll be prepared. I think they'll be used to playing in big games. Like I said, players with a ton of experience and playing at a high level week in, week out. So I think they'll get out of the group. I think they will, and it'll be an amazing achievement for us.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think so too. I look like I think they could sneak one out. Even though, I mean, on paper, some people might not think it's a tough group, but it is. I mean, Egypt's a good team. I mean, I think so. I think it'll be a good group for sure. And so, what are you expecting out of this friendly? Do you think they're going to play this, kind of get the starting 11 going, or do you think there's still going to be maybe some testing, or do you think he's the coach has his kind of his lineup set that he's going to go into the World Cup with?
I don't know. You know, I think they play Haiti on the 3rd, I think, of June, and then play England on the 6th. So it's England, they'll want to go full strength, at least for 45 minutes, maybe an hour, and then look to make some changes. But I'm not sure how he'll go about it. He wants to give everyone plenty of opportunities. I know when we went in 2010, we played like 3 or 4 warm-up games, and we pretty much went full strength from the second game and went with the same 11 just to really try and get some continuity and make sure everyone was prepared. So it wouldn't surprise me if he did the same. But I do think the game comes, pretty hot on the heels of the season ending. Some of the guys in England and Europe have had some long seasons, so he might ease them back in a little bit. But the squad's really strong, 26 players, so I'm sure there'll be lots of game time. But I would hope that he's going to go full strength, really, to see where we're at against a team like England. So we'll see.
Oh yeah, hopefully that's one of the things about the friendlies. Always, you never know who's starting, but I think from the fans going, I think it'd be still pretty exciting to see the game leading up to the World Cup. And now going back now, we'll touch on your experience going back to the 2010 World Cup. I remember being part of the Rowdies. That was a huge deal. And I remember tuning into the games, and I remember watching and going, hey, I know that guy.
Yeah.
It was like a little surreal moment because you're one of the, you're definitely obviously from, like, I don't even know what the percentage is of soccer players that end up playing in a World Cup. It's a very small, and you're one of the select group that got to play in the World Cup. What was that like? Like, how was you when you got there, like to South Africa? Like, what was your base camp like, and what was that experience like going into it and getting to the country and kind of getting acclimated to things?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I think we were together for 3 weeks before the tournament, and we went and we met in New Zealand. So we've got players, I was in the US, we had a lot of players in Europe and England. We all went back to New Zealand, had a few days there, went to Australia, played against Australia. We then went to Austria and had a 2-week training camp in Austria. We played against Serbia and Slovenia. Then we finally went down to South Africa after that. So we'd been together. It already felt like, a long tour before we even got to South Africa. Then we got there, we played against Chile in a warm-up game, and then went into the league games. And, it was cool being in Austria up in the mountains, pretty secluded. But then once you get to South Africa, or will be for the US for these guys, and you're inside that FIFA bubble, you can certainly see the difference. They do things at a whole nother level. So going into that and just the bus with the New Zealand written all over it, and then driving to the games with all the security that you have, and the 10 cars driving you and escorting you to the hotel or to where we were staying, certainly feels like you're part of something pretty cool and pretty. We actually did something different with our base. We were based in kind of in between Johannesburg and Pretoria, but normally you stay in hotels. But we had a connection to someone who owned a golf resort there. So there was a cul-de-sac in the golf resort where, I think there was a handful of new houses, and then some people who were living there, we paid them money to leave for the duration of the tournament. So we all, instead of being in a hotel room, we had these, really, really nice houses on on this golf course, and there was 5 or 6 of us in each house. And then there was like the physio room, so it was a different environment than being stuck in a hotel. And honestly, it really helped. We would race the golf carts up to the clubhouse for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And we crashed one the night before the Italy game. Fortunately, no one got hurt. We got told off afterwards when New Zealand football got an invoice for $15,000 worth of damage to golf carts. But it certainly created a fun environment for us as players, and to have that time away. And that's one of the things I always think about. We ended up going undefeated in the tournament. Some people say winless, that's the haters, but we drew all 3 games and didn't get out of the group, but that's hugely successful for New Zealand. And I think one of the reasons was we just had such a good time, such a good environment. One of the houses, we actually had a team liaison there who day one was like, what do you guys need? We'll make sure you're sorted. And people started asking for stupid stuff. I think one house, they got a drum kit and like a whole band set up. And there was a couple of guys who played the guitar and played drums. So that was set up in their house. And pretty much every night we would go over there and, sort of have like a little rock band session and sing and stuff. And it just created this really fun atmosphere. And, that's one of the things I always tell people. And, hopefully when I see some of these players, it'll be that make sure you enjoy the time off the field, because the games were amazing. Obviously we, drew all 3 games. Drawing with Italy, who were the reigning world champs, is incredible. But the stuff that we remember and that we talk about is the other stuff, the stuff off the field and the fun in that. So, it certainly made it a more enjoyable tournament, I think, being in that environment instead of in a hotel.
That is a great story. Thanks for sharing that. See, this is the insight things that we don't really obviously ever get to to hear about. But I wonder if the German national team, Ethan's going to ask you for drum kits and and guitar.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Jeremy, what was obviously you shared these experiences, which is super cool to hear. What was like your favorite thing? If you had to choose one thing off the field and on the field, what was your favorite thing that happened during the tournament?
I mean, off the field, there was, like I said, just the shenanigans, kind of daily shenanigans that we got up to. But, on the field, obviously, was pretty amazing. We'd drawn with Slovakia. We scored in the last minute, which was New Zealand's first ever point in a World Cup. And then going into the Italy game, we went 1-0 up. I came on in the last 15 minutes or something. And, to finish 1-1 with Italy was kind of like afterwards, we're all looking around like, oh my goodness, if we win the next game, we're through to the knockout rounds. And we just drew with, the world champions. So that was an incredible moment. One of the cool things was we had a lot of fans that were there, a few thousand fans. So after the Italy game, we go into the changing room. The Prime Minister of New Zealand's in there celebrating and that with us. But then we get told, you guys got to go back out on the field. All of the fans are still there. So we go back out in the stadium, everyone else has left, but there's 3,000 New Zealand fans still there. Singing, and we got to go up into the crowd, and obviously our families and stuff were there, and that was really, really cool. And one of the other things that we did was, because we're in these houses at this golf course, is the day after each game our families would come in and we would have barbecue and kind of hang out and get to be with our families and stuff, which was really, really cool too. Something that, again, you don't normally get in that hotel setting, especially it felt like being back home in New Zealand where we're, putting another shrimp on the barbie and hanging out with our family and friends. So that was cool. But yeah, on the field, the Italy one it was kind of crazy. It was annoying though, because after the game, the players who had obviously played the majority of minutes, they were just like I said, up in the crowd with all the families. We were in there, and then we get told the ones who only played 15 minutes, all the guys who didn't get on the field had to go down and train. So then we're out there running on the field, and that was pretty annoying. Another really, really cool thing. There's so many that I can think of, but another one was before our last game. Because we didn't really know what was going on in New Zealand and how it was being received. The games were at 4 a.m, so you never really know. But we had this video sent through to us of and seeing stuff that was on the news of all the bars were packed in all of the cities in New Zealand. 4 a.m, everyone's there watching the games. Thousands of people out on the streets. And as we went through and drew the first game, drew the second game, going into the third game, like the support and stuff that we got back home, and the impact that you have on people in New Zealand. When we saw all that, it was a pretty special moment too.
Nice. That's awesome. That's very cool.
And what was going through your head where you before you got subbed in against Italy? Because just kind of take us out. What were you thinking? Like, do you remember what was going through your head?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because unfortunately I got to play in a few games. We played against some cool teams leading up to it, but obviously being at the World Cup is special. The first game, again, I came on like the last 15 minutes, and there was zero nerves. It's kind of a weird feeling. We had that 4-week training program before we went to the tournament, before we went to South Africa, and we worked so hard on like how we were going to be set up, how organized we were. We did so much like tactical work where like I knew exactly what was going to happen, exactly what I was going to do. So there was never any nerves about doing this and that. I was so like focused and just understood my role so perfectly because we did so much work on it. So going into the game, that wasn't nervous. I was like, I know I've done this a million times in training over the last 4 weeks. I know exactly what I need to do, and it, I don't know, it just, like I said, no nerves. Going into the first game, and we were 1-0 down when I came on in the first game, and we score in like injury time to make it 1-1, and then we were I think it was 1-1 against Italy when I came on, and yeah, I just was so in the zone and knew exactly what my role was. Didn't really feel any nerves. Looking back on it afterwards, I'm like, that's pretty crazy. And when I watch, teams play now, and obviously when I watch like the World Cup since then, to watch it and think like, man, I was there. Like I was playing in these kind of games. It's surreal. It goes by too fast, but yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, I can only imagine. I wish I think everybody on here wishes they could have played the World Cup at least, once. But I did have to ask you this because obviously, just because I was part of it. So you went from being on the biggest stage in the world and spending, this time with the national team, going the biggest stage in the world, totally being watched by millions of people and playing in front of 30, 40,000. How is that like going back to America, going back to the USL and playing at Steinbrenner Field where you played on the outfield? We couldn't even play on the clay. It's just on the small pitch, maybe 1,500 people in the building. And let's not forget I think it was at Schimberg was the training facility, and there was this trailer.
Yeah.
So I just have to, what was that like going from the highs of the high? Because you obviously, like it's not the same for like Premier League players and playing in the Bundesliga. They go from going playing at the World Cup and still going back to that kind of EPL, La Liga, 30, 40,000 people, professional setting. But you went from that to going out. Was that hard adjustment, like mentally? I was just curious.
Yeah.
Two big extremes, right?
Yeah, not really. I mean, look, my career, I played for a long time. I played in Australia, the Australian League, and obviously in the US and a little bit in the UK, but I never played in the Premier League. So whenever I got to go away with the New Zealand team and play in these big stadiums again, it was always cool. But I'd kind of done it through my career where I would do that, go away and play against Brazil, and then go back and play in the Australian League against again, maybe that's a little bit bigger than the USL and stuff, but still the training facilities and stuff weren't great. So, it wasn't hugely foreign to me. And, I think soccer's soccer once I got in the field, facilities aside, I love the game. Even now I coach, whenever I can, I've got my boots on and I'm jumping in the sessions, and, I'm a fan first of all, and like a soccer nerd, and, slightly obsessed with it. So, it didn't really matter to me. And I was proud that I got to go and do that, and what an incredible experience that I had. But, my day-to-day and my bread and butter was playing with Tampa Bay and being in those kind of environments. So instead of thinking about that being a drop-off, I just, going to the World Cup was such a cool experience that, that side was more exciting than the drop-off of coming back to Tampa. But, yeah, that Steinbrenner field, I remember that. I think a quarter of the field was clay, sorry, right? Like there's like one quarter, and I didn't go near that. I was like, I'm not going anywhere near that clay part. I'll stay in this lush outfield. And Pascal, remember Pascal Million? He loved it in there. He was so good in the clay.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I mean, you were there in the early days. Like, it's not people that if they weren't around and followed the route, they essentially come back in 2010. It's not what it is now with the amazing training facility and
Mm-hmm.
the beautiful Alling Stadium and all the things. It was nothing like that in
We're in the
2010.
trenches for sure.
Yeah, bare bones rebuilding the club. So it was obviously a very different time. And yeah, for sure. Then, are you still in touch with any of the guys from the 2010 team?
I've seen Andres Arango. I see him around a little bit at some of these youth soccer events and stuff. I've actually got a mutual friend with Yama, Tiku Yamada. But other than that, Chad as well, Chad Burt. I see a lot of youth soccer stuff. See all those guys, and it's funny. Obviously, I played at a ton of teams, and you might not see guys for 10 years, but the second you see them, it's like, you haven't been apart. That's what soccer players seem to be like. So, I was only there for a couple of years. And even I think between the first and second year, there was pretty big turnover. I speak to the ones I am closest with. I'd say Gordon Kleshin. I'm still pretty close with him. Eric Ustruck as well. And then, Rob Valentino has done great too. And I touch base with him from time to time. But yeah, I'd say those are probably the main ones that I still connect with.
Okay.
Other than yourself, Kai.
Yeah. There you go. And speaking of Yamada, I mean, I don't think I've ever met a more professional. That guy was unbelievable. I think it wouldn't surprise me if he's still playing now.
Yeah, exactly right. I think he was 40 odd when he was playing back then.
Oh, it was unbelievable. The way he took care of his body, it was unreal, like a machine, like unreal. It was great though. He was an awesome guy too.
Yeah.
But and then just looking back on your international career, obviously you played in the Confederations Cup too. You got to play against Spain and Brazil. Like you got to play, obviously World Cup champions Italy. You got to play against some of the best teams at the times and players. What do you remember like from like you playing against Spain and Brazil? What do you remember like from those games, like being on the pitch at the time with Tech, one of the best players in the world at the time, Spain and Brazil?
Yeah, the Brazil one that was a fun one. We played them in 2006. We hadn't qualified for that World Cup, but obviously Brazil had, and we played them a week before the World Cup. It was their last warm-up game, so they were full strength, and we played them in Geneva, in Switzerland. So obviously beautiful setting. It was an afternoon game, and there's all the people in the stand with the drums, and women in bikinis, and it was an atmosphere. And then I was starting in midfield in that game, and we line up down the tunnel, and as I walk down the tunnel, you're looking at the players, and again, being a fan, they were reigning world champs from 2002, and that team there was Roberto Carlos and Cafu, and Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, Adriano, Cafu. I think I said him, Kaká. The team was ridiculous. It's like, I had poster of Ronaldo on my wall when I was in like 1998, 99. So to be out there on the field against them was insane. But the game was actually fun to play in. We actually got a lot of the ball. Ronaldo and Adriano weren't doing a ton of defending. So we were able to get on the ball and knock it around and felt pretty good. We ended up losing it 4-0. But and funny, I think it's Juninho Pernambucano, one of their players. They ended up losing in the quarterfinal of the World Cup to France, and this was one of the highlights of my career. Certainly, probably the highlight at the time. And he came out with a statement saying that they hadn't prepared properly, and their last warm-up game was against a team that played like their feet were stuck in the mud. We're like, huh? I thought we played great. That's, a little harsh. But what a great experience. I got to swap jerseys with Ronaldinho after the game. So I've got that one in my house here, which is nice. Spain one was a little different. I was on the bench in the Confederations Cup. And it's funny, you think about all these things. I think about that game, and we'd played Italy in a warm-up game before the Confederations Cup, and we lost 4-3, but we played great. So at the time, we're thinking Spain were maybe thinking this would be an easy game, and then we'd lose 4-3 to Italy. They're like, okay, we better turn up. So I was on the Torres scored all 4. He came in and scored. So I think we went 2-0 down, and the coach was like, Jez, get warm. So I start warming up. 3-0, he calls me over, come over. I'm like, 3-0 down? And then, as I'm about to go on, Torres scores a 4th. So we're 4-0 down. I go on after like 25 minutes. But got to play in that against, again, the players that play in those kind of games: Xavi, Fabregas, Ramos, Puyol, Xabi Alonso. Just these Casillas, these incredible players. So, again, that was another fun one. It's actually fun to play against teams who really get the ball down and play. You don't have a ton of the ball, but it's not like when you do get it, they're not overly aggressive with pressing. Xavi is not the biggest, Fabregas not the biggest. Funny thing in that game, they brought on like a couple of young players. So 5-0, we ended up losing 5-0. We're 5-0 down, and they make 3 subs. We think, oh, good, they're taking off these guys. Brought on 3 young guys that we hadn't heard of. It was Santi Cazorla, David Silva, and I think who's the other one? Juan Mata, I think, were the 3 players that brought on. So looking back, they turned out to be decent players. So they're the experiences that have played against some of them. Like I said, my opposition 11 is crazy when you add in some of the Italian players, Cannavaro and Pirlo and Gattuso and guys like that. And then, it's funny. They're all like good dudes. We played Serbia, and Nemanja Vidic was playing for them. There was a warm-up game for 2010, and we were winning 1-0. We ended up beating them 1-0, and one of our guys was taking a corner, and all the crazy Serbian fans were getting a little bit, aggressive in the stand, and one of our guys went to take a corner, and empty, big glass bottle of Jim Beam lands next to him on the field. Someone had thrown it at him, so Vidic had to get the microphone and tell all the supporters to kind of calm down so we could finish the game, to get to see that one out. So there's all these crazy little experiences that you get in these different environments. But very fortunate to play in some amazing games against some amazing teams, and nice to look back on it now, seeing it's 13 years ago since I finished playing.
Yeah. Time flies. Holy cow!
I know.
It does. How is the difference playing in Australia, I think, where you played, and then America? What were the 2 differences in terms of level of play, or in the USL? And it's still called the A-League, right? Is that what it was called back then too? Okay.
Yep.
What were the big differences between the two leagues?
I'd say the A-League is probably similar to the MLS, just like, all the games are live on TV and played in the big stadiums and big crowds. So it's similar to that. It was young. The league was young when I was playing in it. It previously had been like a different league, and then it shut down for 18 months, and the A-League started with the franchises, and very similar to the MLS model. Started with just 8 teams, so it was young, but there's so much talent in Australia as well. Young guys that kind of came through there and went to go and play overseas. So it was young and exciting, the league, when I was playing in it. Had 4 or 5, 6 really good years in it. Got to travel all around Australia, lots of travel. I was playing in some of the clubs in New Zealand, and then Perth Glory, which is on the west coast of Australia, which is a 5-hour flight to the closest game. So lots of travel, good for my air points. But other than that, it was the standard was very good. The USL, again, was it was okay. I think the facilities was the biggest difference. Again, playing in the big stadiums, and then playing with Tampa, we would go and play obviously on a baseball field or on a turf field with football lines, and stuff like that. So the professionalism and the facilities was different. I know it's improved a lot now here, but at the time I'd say that was the biggest difference back home.
Those are the early days back then of how soccer was in America back in at the USL level. But and obviously you stuck around Florida, but how does one from New Zealand get kind of I guess sticking it out in the middle of, I think, Central Florida now, right?
Great question.
Beautiful New Zealand.
I ask myself that every day. I met I met my wife when I was in Tampa, and she's actually South African, but she grew up in Orlando, and went to UF. Family and stuff's here, so when I met her, it was a decision. Do I head home and go back there, or do I, if I want to be with her, to be in Orlando? And obviously, I chose to stay here. And trust me, every now and then I drop little hints to her, like, we could be in New Zealand, we could go back there, but it's a long way. Like I said, her family and friends are all here. I left home, went to boarding school at 14, and was in England at 16. So for me to be away from home is not a big deal. I think it would be tough for her, but yeah, maybe one day. There's a few opportunities pop out. There's more and more football opportunities out there. So I love America. I love Florida. I would love to be back in New Zealand at some stage as well. So we'll see.
Yeah, the concrete jungle of Central Florida isn't as nice probably as New Zealand.
I know. Orlando. Now with social media, I keep seeing all these, the top places to live in the world. And New Zealand's always in the top 2 or 3 places.
But and then you found yourself in the crazy world of youth soccer, right, in America. How is that experience been like? And you're still with, I think you found it. I'm not sure if you can maybe tell the story real quick. Well, I don't want to take too much more of your time, but how did that club come about, that Highlands FC, and what you're doing there now?
Yeah, so I got a real job when I finished playing, and I was working in that. But obviously, football's a massive part of my life, and I was just coaching at the high school level, and started doing some individual coaching with players, and then just hearing some of the stuff about how their experiences at the club level. I don't know. We had some concerns for some of the kids that I was working with, and then a few other ex-pros that are in the area here, guys who played for Orlando City. There's one guy, Giles Barnes, he played in the Premier League, played for Jamaica, played for Orlando City. He, myself, and a couple of players who played at the Orlando Pride, Tony Presley and Chris and Evans, we said, we should start a little club and just try and focus on the things that we think players need to develop, and making sure it's about them and making it enjoyable, and just, I guess, trying to provide a good environment. So that's how the club started. 5 years ago, right in the heart of COVID, worst time to start anything. But we're still here, and partnering with other clubs, and really just trying to, like I said, provide a good environment. And like from New Zealand, our big thing is that we have a saying is better people make better players, and just trying to develop character. And again, making it enjoyable. And as coaches, we're not, trying to be dictators. We want to be servant leaders, and just try and, help these kids feel valued. And from our experience as being, 4 professional players, it's like, how do we get to where we got to, and how can we help these kids get to that same level? All the other 3 founders have kind of moved on, or upgraded. Giles is now assistant coach of the Orlando Pride. Kristen, she actually moved. She was playing in Kansas. She's back here doing some different coaching stuff. And then Tony is now under 18 women's head coach. So everyone's gone on to better things, except for me. I'm just here still overseeing it all, and stuck in the world of youth soccer. But I don't know. I feel like we're making an impact and doing good things for good reasons. So, gives me purpose, gives me something to focus on. So, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. What are the biggest challenges you've come across since you've been in that space in youth soccer?
I don't know. It feels like it's so business oriented. It's all about money and numbers of players, and it's just very different to where I grew up. In New Zealand, I'm from a smaller town in New Zealand, and there's you play, and then those clubs from the area, you select the best players from that town, from the different clubs, and they represent the town. And you play against the other towns in a region, and you pick the best players, they represent the region. So it's a true pyramid where everyone has access. Everyone gets seen, essentially. So here, I think, I don't know, there's obviously the different leagues and stuff is challenging. There's so many different leagues. It's hard to know what's what. We've got teams who, there might be 20 clubs here in Orlando that play in 5 different leagues, and you end up driving past 10 clubs to go and play a team in Jacksonville. And Some of the cost is such a barrier for a lot of people, and I think that's a big challenge. And then I don't know. I think it's such a massive business. It's going to get even bigger after the World Cup, and a lot of people I feel like are in it for that reason. How can we make some money? You know it better than I do, Kai, but that's a lot of what I've seen. And there are a lot of good people out there doing it for the right reason. But it's trying to make sure we're doing what's right for the kids. I think it's a challenge, but it is what it is.
Yeah, that's always the biggest is that the business component that's part of the youth soccer landscape here. It makes it hard sometimes because the game is supposed to be first and the kids, and sometimes that we lose sight of that, unfortunately, and kind of, we have such a massive country and so much talent that if we get that right someday, it could be a real powerhouse, right? So I think it's just trying to figure that out.
That's the hard thing, because New Zealand, is 5 million people, and we've got like our World Cup squad is full of players playing in Europe, and I think about Florida's 20 million people. How many kids from Florida are playing, over in Europe? Um, I don't know. Like, is it 4 times what we have in New Zealand? I just think that you're right. There's so much talent here. That's one of the things I notice when I go and watch games and we're playing in games. Like, the amount of talent here is insane. So many good athletes, so many hardworking kids. I just feel like there's so many options now, and it's confusing probably for parents. You're getting told play for this club, but then do this private training, and then play for this team in tournaments and do this. It must be hard for parents to kind of navigate it all. So
Yeah, definitely, I agree with that. I mean, I haven't been in this space for a long time. I even get, the amount of stuff that gets thrown at you on social media now makes it very confusing for parents and players, right? I mean, heck, you even have coaches nowadays who I don't think they know what league they're playing in or what tournament they're at, because there's so much of it
yeah,
out there that it becomes very convoluted, very complicated to
yeah,
navigate. And then even thinking of the small countries like Croatia, for example, who is a very small country itself, produces these amazing players and continue to have success at the national team level, right? So it makes you think that we're in, hopefully one day we'll get it sorted out. But
yeah. That's funny as well. I'm a little old school, and I'm big on, like, in my career. There's stuff I learned in my mid 20s that I wish I knew when I was 13, 14, that I try and put onto kids now. Like, just the basic technical stuff. I work with kids who are supposedly high level players, college players even, and you do basic technical sessions, and the standard is like a million miles away from where it should be. So it's like, what are we teaching these kids at the younger ages? So I feel like, again, I wasn't like that when I was young either. I wasn't very technical, but I learned at my older age. But trying to get kids to learn that is such a massive foundation and basics. Instead, we've got kids who are incredible at doing a million tricks around cones, but can't control the ball out of the air. So there's so many details again that I learned as a player what's really important when you're playing at those higher levels. So, playing against like a Xavi as an example, or Pirlo. I always tell people the story. I played against Italy, and I'm in midfield up against Pirlo. So the coach is like, don't let him get on the ball. I'm like, yeah, he's slow. That shouldn't be a problem. So I'm trying to get near him, and every time I'd look away, I'd look back, and he'd move 10 yards. And just his movement and his awareness, and he never like smashed the ball. He always, like, even 40, 50-yard passes, he was just bending it. Like, the detail was so good. And that he didn't do anything special, but he's one of the best players in the world. So I'm always thinking with players, you don't need to learn all of the tricks. No one's going to be Messi, right? Like, that player doesn't exist. That's an alien. So you can't teach that. Those kids have that. You can't teach it. So just teaching the basics. Be perfect at the basics. But everyone has different philosophies. There's no right or wrong. I just know from what I saw playing against a lot of these players, most of them play simple and they're perfect at the basics. So trying to impart that, but yeah.
yeah,
Jeremy, I would say too, like just listening, right? Obviously, your experiences and everything. I grew up in a European family as well. My mom is from Brazil, and the culture is just completely different, right? Outside of the U.S.
Mhm.
So you having kids play on the street, right, with a ball that might be deflating after 10 minutes because they don't have anything better, right? And
Yeah.
so playing barefoot on the sand, and I'm not saying that doesn't happen in the U.S., but I think overall, from the bigger footprint of things, right? I think the U.S. lacks in that area, and I think that's why, like, their approach towards this, what we call industry, is so different.
Mm.
And then it's kind of just, it's cool to see how intentional you are within this. How you came obviously from New Zealand. You played here as a player in the U.S., but then now you're also in the business side of it within youth soccer. So just to hear your stories and your outlook is very interesting.
Yeah, and I go through it a lot, and I talk to other, former players about it, and and just small examples where I'll go to my training session and I'll be setting up the exercises or whatever, and the players will turn up, and you can see the ones who love the game and they'll get a ball straight away and start doing something, and most of them just sit there on their phones waiting for you to say, okay, go and warm up now. And I don't think there's a real love for the game. And to your point, Ethan, it's probably cultural, and we're oh, the field's a little bit bumpy, we're not happy to play on it. It's different. Like I said, I don't know if there's the love of the game, but the ones that you do see it, they're the ones that I think they've got a chance. The ones that actually love it, and they would be playing no matter what. It's not just in structured training sessions. I've got a young Brazilian girl that I work with, and she goes to the school that I coach and on my club team, and she's like that, where she'll be at home, she's got a ball up against the wall playing, she just loves the game. And they're the ones who are going to continue to get better because they do it no matter what. There's just not many of them around, unfortunately. And like you said, I'm sure it's a cultural thing that we have here, especially with the money involved. Like, you're paying so much that the expectations, like, it's no. Why do I need to do this on my own when we pay you thousands of dollars to do it? So it's tough.
Yeah.
It's and then have you found? I mean, I just you just talked about that the sometimes the foundational aspects are missing, like the technical skill set of the players. What I've noticed in my time too, and I'm pretty sure you're probably running this too, is that I found that some, not all, but there's, some of our good coaches have no desire to work with the 8, 7, and 9-year-olds. They all want to have the 14, 15, 16s, and 17s, but then complain that the players they have on their 16s and 17s lack the lack the skill set that they should have at that age. And I've seen sometimes that has kind of noticed that sometimes that, well, we seem to stick our young guys that just or girls that have come out of college or whatever it is, they just come into coaching. And what do? We stick them with the U9s, the U8s,
Yeah.
and our best coaches we put with our older groups, where they probably should be working with the younger ones to give on that knowledge at an earlier age. Do you kind of come across that too, or have come across that?
Couldn't agree more, and I'm guilty of that. I like coaching the old ones, but my reason is more so, like, I really enjoy the tactical side of the game and making tactical changes, and I don't think the younger ones need that. We try and direct, I run the girls program, ECNL program at Seminole United, and our direction for ours is, there's some milestones they need to hit. You need to do, basic technique, 20 minutes of every session, every day, and kids should be doing that afterwards. But I think the hard thing is, and what I see a lot out there is, like, the coaches' egos of wanting to win games. Becomes such a big thing. Even at those younger ages, we want to have a winning team, because that means I'm a good coach. Whereas, and it's part of youth soccer here, right? A lot of the clubs are not associated with senior teams. Whereas in Europe, the U15 coach, your job is to get players ready for the U16s, and that the U17s up to the pro teams and the first teams, without having a senior team, giving that direction. Where if a first team coach can say, U14s, I don't care how many games you win, you need to have your players hit these markers so they're ready to go into U15s and build up that way. And I just think that's such a difference here. Is like, what is the intention of the coaches? And a lot of it, you see them. I don't know, I go through it, and I don't want to get on my high horse here, but I go through a lot about winning 1-0 in a game and there's 5 minutes to go, and okay, let's not take any chances, get rid of it, for 13-year-olds. And I'm like, that's the time you want to put yourselves under pressure, because that's how you grow. Instead of, it's easy to say build out from the back. It's easy when you're winning 5-0, but now it's like the end of the game, last 5 minutes, you're hanging on for a win. That's when you put yourselves under pressure, and maybe you win, maybe you lose, who cares? But you at least learn because you grow through that. And that's the message we're trying to have with our coaches, is just like, the goal is long-term growth for these players, and you can't focus on winning on Saturday if it's going to disrupt, the long-term growth. So it's just philosophies. Like, I don't think there's right and wrong. I think there's just different. But for me, I don't care how many games we win. Of course, I want to win. I'm super competitive, but I just know long-term, I want to try and help players go and play at high levels. And there's a style of play that, that is played at high levels, and it's getting more and more like that, possession-based and stuff. So yeah, we're trying to do things again long term, but it is what it is. It's a crazy world of youth soccer.
Yeah, and it's a process, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't happen overnight. But well, I thank you for giving us so much of your time here. I appreciate you coming on with us here. It's been awesome to talk to you and get your insight on some things and hear some stories about the World Cup. And also, again, just a reminder that we're going to give away 2 tickets on our Facebook page and 2 tickets on Instagram for the England-New Zealand match at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa on June 6th. And Jeremy, again, thank you for coming on. It's been awesome catching up and getting to hear some stories from the 2010 World Cup.
Yeah.